Yeah, I know these are not the summer vibes that you were probably looking for, but I'm actually home alone now, and that is so rare, so I thought I would take advantage of this beautiful scenery. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Margaret Rose. As you probably have seen, people have been posting their mid-year book tags, and I thought that I would join in. I have a feeling that there's a glare, right? 22 books read this year. I thought I would answer a bunch of questions. I have a whole list of them, and we'll just answer them until I cover everything that I read so far. First question is best book so far in 2025. I would have to go with The Host by Stephanie Meyer. This is by the same author as the Twilight series, and I have not read the Twilight series, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon, or anytime really, honestly. But I had heard good things about this specific book. This is about aliens. It's sci-fi. It's not that kind of sci-fi though. There are these aliens from all of these different planets taking over Earth. They see that human beings are violent, that they don't know how to take care of their planet, that they could better take care of the land and each other if they inhabited the bodies of these human beings. So that's what they do. There are these people called seekers. There are these beings called seekers who seek out. There are also beings who are the ones that are implanted into these people's bodies. It sounds quite strange, but it's actually so fascinating. This follows a specific human girl who has been running from the seekers with her little brother. She finally gets tracked down. This spirit is placed into her body. It's interesting to see how the body still had tendencies that were still present from the person who inhabited that body before. You get to see how this soul begins to realize that this human being actually does have worth. This soul and her people always see themselves as peaceful creatures, and now they're seeing humans are suffering from what they're doing and how they actually do care for one another. And there's just so much bias. I grew to love the characters. I thought it was so well written. I actually really recommend. Forgot my coffee. Okay. Next question. The next question is best sequel. I'm going to say Left-Handed Lady, which is an Enola Holmes mystery. This year I started the Enola Holmes series. They're a middle grade series. I watched the movies and I loved them. My grandma recommended the books too, and as they're middle grade, I thought I would read them to my little sisters. And we've been having so much fun with them. I must say the first book was not anything too exciting for me, but I do know that my little sisters loved it so much. I liked the movie better in terms of the first book. The second book, though, was actually pretty good. In the series, Enola, which is Alone Backwards, she is the sister of Sherlock Holmes. She lived with her mother in a large estate in the country. Her mother was missing her two brothers, Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes. I'm sorry, there's a recycling truck going by. I guess that means it's a coffee break. Enola's brothers, Mycroft and Sherlock Holmes, come to the estate because they were called immediately as soon as they found out that their mother is missing. They come there and realize that all of the funds that they've been giving to their home, to their mother, have not been used for what their mother said that she was going to use them for. They have no idea what she used them for. The estate is in horrible disrepair. There is no nanny for the girl. There is no gardener that they thought they had hired. And now the mother is missing. Enola has no idea what happened, even though she was so close with her mother. Mycroft wants Enola to go to this boarding school now. She does not like that idea because she has always been a very independent young girl. She is a very smart girl too. Her mother basically homeschooled her. Enola does not want to have to be locked up in a boarding school the whole time. So she runs away. And it's all about her adventures. So she does not want to have to run into her brothers because she knows that they'll just take her to a boarding school because, you know, obviously she's got some tendencies to run off and everything. So they want to make sure that she is taken care for. Of course, the boarding schools were not actually, like, she knew what they were like, and she was like, yeah, that's not what I want. So she tries to start her own business as a Predatorian, finder of lost people. She herself, just like her brother, loves mysteries and loves solving mysteries and has a knack for them too. The second book, she has a lot of run-ins with her brother, and she has to disguise herself. And it was so funny and so fun. We were at the edge of our seats every time Sherlock Holmes came into the scene, which was very rare. Especially in the first book, there were like none of those. And it was just a fun book overall, so that was definitely my favorite sequel of the year. The other book in the series that we read so far was The Bizarre Bouquets, and that one was also really exciting. We just picked up and started The Peculiar Pink Fan Mystery this week, so I'm very excited to continue that series. The biggest surprise this year so far: Lone Wolf by Reka Klassen. Chantal reads all day, who I love to watch. She has such great recommendations. Her daughter wrote this book. She was something like 13 years old when she published it. It's in such an interesting style. I've never experienced it before. Look at these chapters, so short. It's about this foster kid. She doesn't fully appreciate her family at first. It really reminds me of that one movie. I don't remember what it's called exactly, but I'll put it on screen. And it was good. I recommend. Biggest disappointment. I would have to say Tom Lake. I listened to this over audiobook, which was actually a very fun experience. It was narrated by Meryl Streep, and her voice. I mean, come on. She's got the best narrating voice, and so that's why I wanted to listen to it over audiobook, and I already wanted to read the book. This is about a young girl who realizes that she has talent for acting and eventually acquires an agent who ships her off to this place called Tom Lake. Basically this theater in Michigan with a lake that they call Tom Lake for no good reason. It's just about her time there. It's a very nostalgic story because it is this girl when she's like, I would say in her 60s, telling the story to her 3 daughters who are now young adults. The whole atmosphere of the story, like I said, nostalgia, like kind of summery, but I was disappointed in it because it could have done so much better. It included some things, some content that I was not happy with, and so that was disappointing because the rest of the book was phenomenal. So I actually don't recommend. I think I ended up rating it like 2 stars. For the most part, I was like, this is amazing, but it got to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. So that was a disappointment. That's why I put that there. Favorite new author. I don't have a favorite new author. I just continue to read from a favorite author of mine already. I read 2 books by her this year, actually. I got some coffee juice on it. Augie and Me, 3 Wonder Stories by R.J. Palacio, and Pony by R.J. Palacio. I love her Wonder Stories so much. Her Wonder is one of my favorite books of all time. So I decided to reread Augie and Me because my sister just started reading the books for the first time, and she got to this one, and I was like, can we read this together? Because I miss it. And so I've already reread Wonder 3 times. I've never reread this one. We read this one together. We switched off chapters and had such an amazing experience. We would discuss about it, not because that was the purpose. We didn't have any discussion questions or anything. We just found it so relatable for the both of us. I mean, certainly for me, it was more of me reminiscing on my past and my time in middle school, but she's almost in middle school, and so we were able to discuss so many different things. I recommend every parent has their kid read Wonder. If you can like read it with your child, that's even more amazing, but I really needed this when I read it a long time ago, and rereading it again, it was still so amazing. Then the second book that I picked up, I just finished this one. This is Pony by R.J. Palacio. This is the only book that R.J. Palacio wrote that is not in this Wonder series. It is about a boy, some ghosts, and a pony. It's historical fiction, and I've never heard anybody talk about it. I only found it because I was like, I love R.J. Palacio, what else has she written? And I found this, and it's so different. I would have never guessed it was by her while reading it if I didn't know shops. This was like a whole other side to R.J. Palacio that I never knew of. She loves going to antique shops. She's always collected these old photographs, and she included a number of photographs that she's just collected over the years, just unknown people. Guys, you need to see this. She also begins every chapter with quotes again, and I found like she quoted from some books that I found I was like, I want to read that now. One of them is The Adventures of Telemachus. Telemachus is the son of Odysseus from the Odyssey. And I read the Odyssey, I read the Iliad in high school, and loved them so much. I've always been wanting to do a reread of those. And I had no idea. There was this French author from, I think, like the 1500s who wrote The Adventures of Telemachus. And what was so cool was that this boy in this, he was also a huge reader and loved like the epics and the classics, and he would talk about it too and like compare it to his life, and I'm like, we're like kindred spirits. I'm exactly the same way. You need to read this book. You need to read this book. The next question, I thought this one was fun. What is your new fictional crush? What do you mean new fictional crush? I'm a loyal girl. My fictional crush will always be Keith Sunsen from Keeper of the Lost Cities. I did reread Exile this year. That's him. I reread the first one another year. I think it was like 2 years ago. But I want to continue rereading this series because this is my heart and soul, guys. And I was in a slight reading slump when I picked this up, but this got me right out of it. If you haven't read Keeper of the Lost Cities, what is wrong with you? No, I'm kidding. You just have a huge amount of happiness coming your way once you pick these guys up. Similarly, another question is, what is your new favorite character? I chose The Little Prince. I had no intention of picking this up. My brother read this, and granted, he is not a reader. He hates almost every book that he reads. Like some of my favorite books, I'm like, how could you not like that? But he just, everything that he said about, like, he actually gave like me some what I thought were good reasons why not to read it. It just seemed so bizarre. He had to read this for school, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine with never reading that. I'm studying education, a trainer. This first section aloud to us. I'll just read aloud to you too. Literally the very first words in this book. Once when I was 6, I saw a magnificent picture in a book about the jungle called True Stories. It showed a boa constrictor swallowing a wild beast. Here is a copy of the picture. There it is. In the book, it said, boa constrictors swallow their prey whole without chewing. Afterward, they are no longer able to move, and they sleep during the 6 months of their digestion. In those days, I thought a lot about jungle adventures and eventually managed to make my first drawing using a colored pencil. My drawing number 1 looked like this. And this is what the picture looks like. I showed the grown-ups my masterpiece, and I asked them if my drawing scared them. They answered, why be scared of a hat? My drawing was not a picture of a hat. It was a picture of a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. Do you see that now? There's his little face over there. Okay. Then I drew the inside of the boa constrictor so the grown-ups could understand. They always need explanations. My drawing number 2 looked like this. So you can actually see the elephant inside. The grown-ups advised me to put away my drawings of boa constrictors outside or inside and apply myself instead to geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar. That is why I abandoned, at the age of 6, a magnificent career as an artist. The whole thing is he's like talking about how adults are so stupid and they just don't understand. And you get to, it's literally written from a child's perspective. Like so many of his thoughts, like I remember thinking from when I was a kid, and it was very interesting as somebody getting into education to read. If you like reading books that are kind of nostalgic, I would recommend this. It's just very imaginative. I loved him as a character. I would say he's my favorite so far of 2025. Book that made you cry. I would say The Long Fall by Penelope Wilcock. This is the third book in a series that she wrote. Just a bunch of stories that are very short, like books that are probably about like 100 pages each. It's fictional. It's just following the life of these medieval monks, and they're literally brothers. Like, you see their struggles and it literally feels so real. It pulls at your heartstrings, everything that they're going through. This one specifically was about their abbot dying. It did make me cry, and seeing how it affected the brothers there. I recommend that series, especially The Wounds of God, the second book. That would be my favorite sequel if I read that this year. Book that made you happy, surprisingly, I would say Finding Chica by Mitch Albom. It is about the death of this little girl. That's not a spoiler. It's just about this author. It's nonfiction. He is just reminiscing about his time with this little girl who he fostered for a period of time as she tried to go through these procedures for cure her cancer. But the thing is that he always focused on the positive aspects of her life and what he learned from it. So instead of it being a depressing story, I found myself smiling because she's just such a sweet, cute little girl. How much love he has for her. It was beautiful. A book that actually made me laugh out loud. This is a compilation of great American short stories that I bought this year. I chose for this question Rip Van Winkle, and this is a short story written by Washington Irving. He also wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which I love the animation for. It's like an old Disney movie, narrated by Bing Crosby, who I also love. So I thought it would be really fun to read this short story. It was hilarious. I'll just tell you what I knew from the start, because it is a short story and I don't want to not be able to read it and enjoy it. But it's about just like a middle-aged man who falls asleep and sleeps for 20 years and then wakes up and everything is completely different. And it is so humorous. Although I think what possibly, this is what I got from it, the author was trying to get at was the change that took place in 20 years. It takes place before the Revolutionary War. He is loyal to King George, and so is the whole town. And when he wakes up, everybody's all about George Washington. There's an election coming up. And when he says, like, long live the king, they all just freak out. It's so funny, and it's very interesting to see that. Which book do you see yourself rereading in the future? I'm gonna have to go with Dune by Frank Herbert. I loved this book so much. I read most of it actually in 2024, but I finished in 2025, and now it's on my challenge list on Goodreads, so I'm just going to count it as a 2025 read. As soon as I finished this, I knew that I was going to reread it. There is so much to process. I'm sure I did not pick up everything. It's just such a dense classic that I feel like every time I read, I could figure out so much more. I am so excited to watch the new movie. I've watched both part 1 and part 2 so far. And I wasn't thinking about reading Dune Messiah anytime soon, but then I saw it in my library and it was a lot thinner than I thought it was. It's thinner than this, which it is like they make most of every page. I think I might pick it up. I kind of miss it. Book that changed your mood. This changed my mood to angry because I read Beauty, which is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I came out with a little short where I talked about that before. I definitely didn't talk too nicely about it because I just don't like the story of Beauty and the Beast, and I talked about it in that clip. I love the whole enchantment of it. Like, certain aspects of like the live action movie, I'm like, whoa, I love that. But also just this whole storyline I feel like is very messed up, and this just kind of brought it to my full awareness because it's exactly the same story as the original, but just in more words. Granted, one of my very best friends recommended this to me, and so I totally understand if people have other opinions and love the story. So I don't recommend this book, but I don't have a problem if you read it. I just don't like it. Okay, favorite series that I've read so far. So I did read the Enola Holmes series, but I wouldn't say that that's my favorite. Could you hear the thunder? It's very quiet. I read a series by Leslie Wall. It's a sports romance, Christian romance, with a mystery in it too. And it was so fun. It's about a snowboarder who comes into fame because he's like 17, but he went into the Olympics and he won a silver medal or something like that. And now he's like, everybody's in the view of the public now. And he moves to this small town in Colorado because he wants to be able to snowboard on the mountains there. He meets this girl who really hates him because she just, thinks that all famous people are messed up. So this is called The Perfect Blindside. The second book is called Extreme Blindside, and then there's this small novella called Unlikely Witness, which I also loved. I loved the whole series. The characters were so fun. Leslie Wall, the author, I would say is my favorite Christian fiction author ever. Next one is favorite retelling. So that would not be Beauty, but I did read A Christmas Carol Murder by Heather Redmond. This is a Dickens crime mystery. Apparently this is a whole series of retellings of the Dickens novels. Of Dickens, I've read a few of his books. I've read The Christmas Carol almost every year. I've read Oliver Twist and Great Expectations, and I loved all of them. And I saw this at the store. It looked so interesting. I love how eerie The Christmas Carol is, so I thought this would be interesting, and it was very good. I must say, like, the writing was a little off. I wasn't too, like, excited about the writing or anything, and it wasn't, like, I felt like the characters were so alive or the mystery was anything all that crazy, but it was an enjoyable book, and I definitely enjoyed it more than Beauty. And what were your favorite nonfiction reads? Well, I would definitely say Finding Chica. But I already said that, so I would say Everywhere, Travels in Search of the Lady Saint. I don't have a physical copy of this, but I found it at the library and it looked kind of interesting. It's about this woman who grew up Catholic, and so she has this love for the Lady Saint. Yeah, she's also a traveler, and so she traveled around the world and like visited the sites that were like part of their life, as well as like shrines dedicated to them, and she tells stories. It's so fascinating. It wasn't like anything too mind-blowing, but I did enjoy my read. I thought it was so cool. The best classic of the year so far, I would say Heidi. This was a reread. I read this when I was in elementary school. I loved it so much. It was my favorite book at the time. I reread it this year because my little sisters had to read it for school, and I was like, I've always wanted to reread of that, so I read it with them. I read it to them, and we loved it so much. They loved it. I loved it. It's just such a sweet story. There isn't anything, like, if you've seen the movie, they make it more complicated than that it actually is in the book. It's just a really sweet story of this little Swiss girl in the Alps, and she just has such a big heart. Her grandpa, who she lives with, is at first a very grumpy old man, but then she changes his heart. There are actually so many good morals in this story. I was so shocked, like, and directly so. References to the Bible. It was so cool. Let's see. I think there were some fun extra questions that they asked. Do you think you will reach your reading goal? Will you change it? So last year my reading goal was the same, 40 books, but it reached the last few months and I needed to read like 12 more books in order to finish, and I was like, that's impossible. So I changed it to 30, and I regret doing that because reading goal is you're supposed to test yourself and see if you can actually make it. You don't just change it to work out for yourself. So I will not be changing it. I have read 22 books this year. I think I'm on track. But even if I don't, I'm not going to change it. I feel like I've got such a variety here, and I'm excited to see what else is in store. I have so many books that I want to read this year. So make sure that you subscribe so that you can stay updated. There's another book tag that I want to do. I love these book tags, so stay tuned.